What's going on, everybody? John Arapoli here with My MMA News. And what's better than tuning into an interview and seeing one Lock Haven alumni? How about tuning in and seeing two Lock Haven alumni? I'm pleased today to be joined by the 2004 Olympic silver medalist, former UFC title challenger, the current number 9 bantamweight contender in the world, and fellow Lock Haven alumni, Sara McMann. Sara, thank you so much for being here today, taking the time out of your schedule to be here. I know right now you're in your car, you're getting ready to go to practice. I don't want to hold you up, so we're just going to dive right into everything here today. Just tell everybody a little bit about training camp and how it's going as you're preparing for this fight date, which, by the way, for everybody out there, is on August 28th.
It's going surprisingly well. I was nervous. This has been a longer camp than what normally I have. Usually we're told about 2 months before our opponent and the date and everything. And I was told 3 months before. So that kind of made me nervous because whether I like it or not, I'm going to be once I know I have a fight signed, I'm going to ramp up the intensity and, the goes are a little bit harder. Everything has a little bit more urgency than when you're out of camp. And I was like, that's a long time. I was kind of worried that I would start to break down towards the end. So we had to try to be very smart with everything. But oh man, I'm surprisingly very healthy and in great condition. So things are going well. But I still have 2 more weeks of intense stuff. So I dread it, but I know it's what needs to be done. So I'm just that's just the way it goes.
So this fight is actually a rematch. You guys did meet a few years ago. Ketlen did get a victory over you. So as you prepare for this fight, is there anything that you remember from the first matchup that you've been kind of keeping in the back of your mind and working on in camp? Or did you go back and watch your first meeting and kind of look at tendencies? Or all of that's out the window now? It's a few years later. It's a completely different fight and you're just focusing on getting the win here on fight night?
No. So in the past 4 years, moving to Alpha Male and, working with them for a little while before branching off and starting my own gym, I've just grown as a fighter, I've grown in my striking. But a major difference is the first time I fought her, we didn't have very much background information on her, and she had more striking in her fights. I didn't know she had a judo background. So going into, if I had known that in the past, there were different things I would have approached differently, and that absolutely would have made a difference in that fight. So now knowing her background, that tells me a little bit more about her style, her strengths, the feel of her as a fighter. And so, it'll absolutely be different.
So there you say, you're familiar with her now. Before she was kind of unknown. You know what those tendencies are. You kind of have an exact game plan going into this. So I guess the next question is, what exactly is it going to take to get a win on fight night?
For me, I think that anytime that I stay on my offense, I'm just hard for any girl in the division to handle. So for me, it's not so much specifically her. It's more of a, what do I need to do in every single fight, which is staying in my offensive mindset and not being kind of lulled into just, defending and reacting. I have to be, coming forward and attacking. And that is something that is it's easy to say and it's hard to execute because, 15 minutes is a long time. And it's not just fatigue, but it's just, staying offensive while parrying the things that they are doing as well. It's just it's staying on track. And so a lot of it comes down more to focus for me.
So now this fight actually means a lot too in the bantamweight division because you guys are coming in, you're ranked number 9, she's ranked number 7. Whoever wins this fight is going to be right outside of the top 5. Next fight's probably going to get a top 5 opponent. So obviously, the winner of this fight is probably 2-3 fights max away from getting a title shot. I know that a lot of has to happen there. A lot of victories have to take place there, but still puts you in a great position. Talk about making a run back towards a title fight. I know you did fight for one a few years ago against Ronda Rousey, and now obviously I know Amanda Nunes isn't the most active champion in the bantamweight division. She more defends her featherweight title, but still, just talk about what it's going to take to make this run and get back towards the top and hopefully earn a shot at Amanda Nunes.
For me, finishing on the ground. I think that that is one huge area that I have to grow in and that I should exploit. Like I take almost every single one of the girls down. And so being able to have strong finishes on the ground and good submissions, or TKOs, either one, that is just going to break open, the barriers that have been in front of me.
And what's crazy to think with all this here, and you talk about making a run, and you've obviously already made a run once because, as I mentioned in my last question, you did compete for a UFC title against Ronda Rousey. You've been at this now for such a long time. You've fought 8 years in the UFC, which is hard to do. Not to mention your wrestling background when you competed at a high level in high school, college, the Olympics. I know women don't talk about their age, but you did tell me it was okay to bring it up. So you're 40 years old. What's the secret to the longevity in the sport?
So part of it, I think a huge part of it is just discipline. So I was thinking about the other day, and I'm 3 weeks out, and I'm 10 pounds over my weight class. So it's eating very, very well, like almost all the time. Getting good sleep, staying hydrated is all the boring stuff that's not at all exciting or sexy or wonderful, but it's stuff that like I rarely drink. I do everything like completely geared towards making me the highest level athlete that I possibly can. And I've done it now for like decades. And so that's something that increases my longevity a lot. I think also having a very growth mindset, like no matter if I'm doing well, I'm like, I need to do better. I need to clean up this. I need to do better at this. Like I'm always trying to grow. But I will admit that part of it is luck. Like I'm really, no. So like I'm in two sports that people get major injuries that can be career ending. So the fact that I don't have a shoulder surgery. I don't have any surgery. I don't have back or neck surgery. I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate that my body is withstanding this kind of intense training for this long. So that definitely has a little bit to do with it too.
Indeed, you are definitely lucky to avoid a lot of those injuries. I know the sport is grueling. It takes a big toll on the body. But Sara, if it's okay with you, I do want to end by talking a little bit about Lock Haven University. Of course, we're both very proud alums of the school. So what exactly drew you to Lock Haven in the first place?
So both of my parents were actually born in Lock Haven. Like we didn't live there as much growing up. We lived there some, but all of my extended family was in Lock Haven. And I mean, I wanted to transfer schools from Minnesota Morris. I was on an all-female team, and I just wanted to train with guys. I've trained with guys like majority of my life, so I just wanted to transfer schools. And I had gone there for the Lock Haven wrestling camps, where there's like 800 kids, and they were just like, it was in the heyday when it was like humongous camps, and they were. Everybody was just so were so just good. It didn't matter that I was a female. As anybody who was willing to come in there and work hard and love the sport and do their best, you were accepted. And so when I went to transfer places, I was like, that's the most natural fit, is the place that I felt so comfortable and that people wanted my growth and they were happy for me and proud of me. And so I transferred there my sophomore year.
Yeah, you mentioned there about training with guys, and I actually had your college wrestling coach, Carl Poffa, as a professor, great man, and he would talk about your dedication, and he would say how you used to train with all of the guys. Well, I know now there's been a big push, definitely here in the state of Pennsylvania. You've been a part of it, the Sanctioned PA, trying to get women's wrestling sanctioned in the state of Pennsylvania. But how important is it, not only in Pennsylvania, but all across the United States, to sanction women's wrestling and get it more commonly known and make it a nice opportunity for these women to get involved in the sport and to maybe even have the opportunity now to wrestle in practice against other women as opposed to having to train with guys all the time like you had to do?
So I think that it's really huge for the growth of the sport, because especially they prefer to connect with other women. Like some girls that wouldn't be a deterrent, driven girls, just because they don't want to come in and be, especially at the high school age, they don't want to be at a disadvantage, and they don't want to have like that kind of physical contact with boys. And boys sometimes don't want it either. So if you can remove those little barriers and allow women to wrestle other women, it's a more even playing field, especially once they hit puberty. But it also, like, wrestling, like, it's a very physical sport, and so, like, you can't get around that. And when people don't do it and they don't know, like, the amount of physical contact, a lot of people just aren't used to that. And if you do wrestling, you realize, like, it's just you don't even think about it once you're trying to, like, actually control another person, like, it just kind of, it's out of your mind. But on the outside looking in, that can be just enough barrier to keep really talented kids off the mats, is, not having it separated by gender. And I still think there's a ton of values going with guys, but I think it could be like more of a choice rather than the only option.
All right, so I do want to get back on to the Lock Haven topic now here for a second as we start to wrap things up here. I did mention Carl Poff, your college wrestling coach. Talk about him a little bit, because he's so beneficial, of course, to all the wrestlers. I'm sure he's helped you out tremendously, but he's also a great man, a great leader. He did so much for the college. So just talk about him a little bit and just how much he's meant to you.
I think that the best thing, like, so first of all, he's like super warm and welcoming, and he's just an outgoing guy that's like nice to every single person he meets. It doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter like what your profession, anything. Like, if you meet Carl Poff, you know that he's just a really nice, engaging person. And he's very helpful. But beyond that too, like, he's a very strong leader. He's smart when it comes to not just the wrestling aspect, but like all of the administrative stuff, all of the stuff, like everything that goes on behind the scenes with alumni, and making sure that the wrestlers don't even have to think about that all we do is come in and train. Like, but a lot goes into that, and you have to be good at it. And Carl was like very, very intelligent when it came to that part too. And which you don't always find. Sometimes you find a wrestling coach that is great at wrestling and not any of the other stuff. And that just wasn't the case with him. So, but it helped the team grow tremendously.
He is definitely a great man. He does so much behind the scenes. And I know you had him as a wrestling coach. I had him as a professor, and he had a great class. I really enjoyed all the topics he would talk about. I still remember most of them too. He was such a great guy. And now, Sara, I do want to end with one other Lock Haven thing here. Recently, you've been inducted into the Lock Haven Sports Hall of Fame. I know the Lock Haven Sports Hall of Fame is fairly new. You were one of the first ever classes ever inducted into that. But just talk about that honor to get inducted into the Lock Haven Sports Hall of Fame.
So that holds a really, really special place in my heart, because the growth period that I had at Lock Haven, like, I moved there and I made my first world team. And then the period of growth that I made in the 3.5 years that I was there, like, that was some of the hardest workouts I've ever done in my entire life. And so it, like, to be inducted into Lock Haven's Hall of Fame in such a sport or a wrestling centered state, in the school that was so extremely wrestling centered too, like, it's just a tremendous honor. Because I know that that's just not something that they would give out very lightly, like, that's something that's very special to them as well. And so I was really, really honored.
All right, Sara, thanks again so much for all the time here today. I appreciate it. I know you're busy. You got practice to get to, so we'll let you get going here. So thank you again for the time. And to a reminder to everybody out there that's watching this interview, if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. This way you'll get notified whenever I have more interviews that come out just like this one I did here with Sara today. And also, guys, MyMMANews, great website, great content, comes out 7 days a week. So make sure you guys not only check the website out daily, but go to our social media accounts, give us a like and a follow. And if you're interested, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at John Eric Pauli. We'll see you later, everybody.